All right, and I think we're good and live. Welcome everybody to a we'll call it a pseudo best of five series because it's not technically a best of five because obviously these guys are playing a ranked. If you're new to the channel, welcome everybody. If you're not and you're confused why you're seeing this on YouTube, but it's a different VOD than what's on my channel, it's because the VOD on my channel is a bit corrupted. Unfortunately, I had some issues yesterday where my Twitch went down about halfway through, or not even halfway, after the first game, I think, of the ranked replays I did between Daniel and Forky, and so as a result, the entire video looked really, really bad the second half. I don't really know why. It is what it is, but, you know, what that means is I got to re-record the series. So, unfortunately, I do know the results of all of these games. I somewhat knew the results of this the entire way on the last one because I knew what the series score was. So, we're going to go into this one trying to be a little bit, not called unfavorable, but I guess the best way to put it is I'm going to try to keep this as even as possible while informing you guys about the players playing and trying to not take into account the overall series score, which I know what it is. So, but regardless, what we've got for you guys today is Daniel versus Forky. If you guys don't know how these work, these rank replays are basically replays that someone from the match uploads to ballchaser.com. Or is it ball chasing? Ballchasing.com. If you guys don't know what that is, please go check it out. It's awesome. There's a ton of replays there from pros down to people at, I think, probably the lowest rank I'd imagine is gold because I don't think there's anyone in bronze or silver using Bacchus mod to upload replays. But you never know. So, but the best part about it is that you get the access to these pros and to a lot of high-ranking pros, including Daniel versus Forky. So these are two names that if you don't know Rocket League, you probably aren't familiar with them. But if you've been around Rocket League for, I would say, the last year, these are two names that have popped off. Forky's been a name for a while. Daniel's been a ranked grinder for a while. Every single pro on the planet knows that Daniel's going to be someone big in the next couple years. But without further ado, we'll get on into it today to let you guys see what this is. I've got the best of five, I believe. I'm going to make sure on this. I've got the best of five thing up in the top left, so we're going to count this as if it were a best of five initially. If the scoreline ends up going over that and, you know, one of the two of them wins 3 games before we get to the final 5, we'll just take it off the screen. But for now, that's going to remain. So without further ado, let's get on into it. Forky versus Daniel, first in what will be a pseudo best of 5 series. And yeah, getting on into this, immediately Forky coming out with it, but the first thing to mention is about basically who both of these players are. If you guys don't know who Forky is, you've more or less been living under a rock for Rocket League. Forky is a 1v1 player who has emerged on the scene, I would say, let's call it 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, something like that. But the big thing for him is that he has been a 1v1 contender, or at least, you know, a name in 1v1s for a while. He participated in the last Salt Mine. I believe he got 6th place. He was tried to qualify, I should say, for the last Salt Mine 2. So the original Salt Mine he played in, but the last Salt Mine that came up, Salt Mine 2, he tried to play in, was not able to make it through qualifiers and into the main event. And since then, he's been relatively quiet. Forky's been a guy who everyone has known in 1v1s. He's taken a couple of show matches on JohnnyBoi's channel. But besides that, he definitely hasn't been a name for top players on the planet. However, when this was recorded and when this was going on and when I'm recording this at the moment, Forky is 14th on the planet. So he's been really grinding a lot to try and prove himself as a worthy adversary in the 1v1 realm. Meanwhile, this kid, literally kid on the other side, has been doing the same thing. Daniel, if you guys don't know, is one of the youngest Rocket League players out there right now. He's a 13-year-old Rocket League player from America, from the United States, and he's going to be something, or it's someone, I guess I should say, that everyone should be watching for the next couple years. As soon as he hits 15, I should say, not 18, he's definitely going to be competing in RLCS level events, RLCS events, and similar stuff because he is just that good. He's a very mechanically gifted player. I think he's got a pretty good IQ for Rocket League. I'll go into that further, but I think that's actually probably the biggest thing holding him back would be his IQ for Rocket League because his mechanics are super clean. He's an extremely fast player. He loves to play fast, and he's going to be someone to watch in the next couple years, similar to, I think, Chronic and Driza both just turned 15 and immediately went into RLCS play. So he's going to be like one of those kids, similar to, I think it's Aqua's probably the next one up that's going to immediately hit RLCS, and there's definitely a couple others I'm missing out there, so if I am missing them, don't hesitate to let me know. I think Demonifying's another one, if I'm not mistaken. I think Demonifying's 14, but don't quote me on that one. So, but regardless, he's holding his own against Forky so far. Daniel, actually the higher of the two players here. He's rated, I believe it's 7th on the planet. So we've got what is the 7th versus the 14th player on the planet. The thumbnail will be corrected if that's not correct, because when I upload this, I'm going to try to give them their their accurate ranks, so it could have changed by then. But I believe, at least when this was recorded, which was within the last week, it was 7-14. So Forky and Daniel doing a good job of being some of the best players out of North America. Matter of fact, Daniel, I believe, is third, only behind Lion Blaze and Mile for NA, and Forky is somewhere around either 5th or 6th. So two very high players that are both really high up there on the leaderboard. Daniel, like I said, has been a ranked grinder for a while. He really popped up on the scene mostly this year. He had taken some minor competitions before this, but 2020 was really the year of Daniel, or at least for him it was, and in my mind it was. He's been a very good player. He's been a solid player all around, and obviously he's doing a lot here. Forky coming off the ceiling. Can he get the double? No, unfortunately not. But again, this is sort of what I mean. You see Daniel quick to the ball. Doesn't even let Forky set up a shot off the ceiling, much less get into a transition play to get back on defense. Daniel's a very, very quick player. If you give him more than enough time, he's going to absolutely do whatever he can with it, and that's pretty evident. He's down 3-1 in this series. Now at the halfway point, he's up 4-3. So Daniel, a very solid player all around. His mechanics, like I said, are just so clean. Goes for the musty flick after the reset. I mean, really, what are you supposed to do there? That's honestly something you would expect out of Forky. If you guys don't know about Forky's personal channel, what he's been doing lately, Forky is signed to Pulse, if I'm not mistaken. And he's not necessarily a freestyler, but he's pretty close to a freestyler. A lot of the shots you'll see him take in 1v1s is pretty much what a freestyler would do. I would definitely qualify Forky as a freestyler, but I wouldn't say that that's necessarily, the main objective of what Forky does. Forky is a very competitive player. He's a very good player, and I think that he goes beyond a freestyler. He's also just a very solid all-around player. Obviously, we saw him try to compete for RLCS with Musty and Leth. Apparently, I can't say those two names. My brain just doesn't have a way to comprehend them. But he's a very solid player. He's going to miss an open net here. No, he's not. I take that back. Off the post and in. But he really could be someone that could pop up in 1v1 names for the next, I would say, I don't know, next year or so. Obviously, like I said, we haven't really seen him for probably the last half a year after trying to compete in the last Salt Mine. Took a couple of show matches on Johnny's channel, but really that's about it. Otherwise, he's been kind of silent. But he came into season 15 or season 1, however you want to call it, because I know the community is slightly torn on that one. But he came into this season heated and ready to go, obviously. He's been a ranked grinder for a minute, got himself up to a high level, and now he's competing against other high-level players. Daniel, great example of that. And Daniel doing a great example of why he is a high-level player here in this game. At 13, he really doesn't have a lot to hold him back here. His reactions are quick. His speed is quick. Like I said, the only thing I think that he'll need to work upon in the next couple years is probably his Rocket League IQ, just sort of where he positions himself and when not to go for a challenge. Forky going to do a good job there of challenging at the correct time, going above Daniel for that one. But regardless, I think he's got the time for that. Obviously, he cannot compete in RLCS events or RLCS-like events, as in stuff sponsored by Psyonix, where the cap is 15 for professional play. So he obviously can't compete in that really in the next couple years. Oh my God. So yeah, I remember I said I went back to the replays and saw them already. I knew that was coming, and I still can't believe it. Forky setting up that ceiling shot is just ridiculous, popping it underneath Daniel. My word, just such a nice shot out of Forky. But yeah, Daniel will become one of the premier players in North America, in my opinion, in the next couple years. We're going to have another ranked review or ranked replays after this. I managed to find the best of 5 series between apparently Jack and TRK, who are both within the top 10 players on the planet right now for one. So we're going to go over that next. But that's apparently Jack and Daniel are really my picks for the next couple years of who are going to dominate RLCS and RLCS-like events. Apparently Jack has been a player, if you guys don't know, who has just absolutely dominated one since he popped up in the Salt Mine 2 qualifiers and Salt Mine 2 just overall event, as he was one of the biggest names there and really took a lot of people by surprise, including Yorez, who he took to a best of 5. He took him to a reverse sweep, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe a best of 7 reverse sweep, but regardless, a reverse sweep nonetheless. So him and Daniel, are 2 players to watch here. Daniel with a very heads-up 50 on the line, giving himself 2 goals with 20 seconds left, but those 2 guys are the guys to watch, in my opinion, out of North America and EU right now. Forky going to bring himself back into this one. So maybe we might actually have a shot here. Forky, 1 minute or 20 seconds left, 1 goal differential here. He's just got to play quick on this ball. Daniel with a fake kickoff, smart idea, takes boost and now has time to waste. And obviously Forky's going to challenge early. Daniel really taking his time here, though, baiting in the challenge. And I think that one goes in, if I'm not mistaken. It does. And I think that's where it's called. Forky, forfeits with 6 seconds left. So that's going to be that for the first game. Obviously, Daniel taking the first game in style. Very, very close between the two of them, but as we can see, Forky just not able to put it away there after having, I believe at a max was a 2-goal lead, and then he left a lot of room for Daniel to come back, and really not a bad play out of Forky or Daniel there, but Daniel obviously the victor of that one. But again, both of these players, two really, really high-level players who have been around for at least a minute, and more specifically, Forky, I'm excited to see him getting back into the grind for being the top in America. We'll look real quick. Let me go check and see. So if we're looking at, where is it? I believe, is it under, not options, garage. Where is career? There it is, career. League ranking. So at the moment, Daniel is still number 7 on the planet, and Forky has dropped down to 15th, getting passed by RT. So again, still pretty high level players. It's the 7th versus the 15th, and if we're taking that out of America, I believe that, yeah, Daniel is number 3 in America, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If RT is American, which I don't know, I'll find out after that. He's the number 7th player on the planet. If he is not, he is currently the number 7th player in North America. If not, he's number 6th player in North America. So regardless, two very, very high players, the number 3 versus the number 6 for America. So these are really two of the best players out there. And obviously, first game, Daniel taking it pretty, not heavily, but taking it pretty well. Takes a 2-goal lead at the very end of the game, and really for the second half of that game, he was very much in control there, although it went back and forth pretty much the whole time. So getting into the second game here, no, sorry, that goes black. I hate that it does that, but unfortunately that's just how it is with Rocket League. But second game, and we are underway. Daniel versus Forky, and we're back in it yet again. This time the colors are flipped, though, so I do apologize. I believe this is the only game of the series where the colors are flipped like this, so for now, you're just going to have to bear with me and understand that Daniel is no longer in blue, that Forky is in blue, and that Daniel is in orange now. So, again, I greatly apologize, but there's not much I can do besides going and fixing that right now, but really not much point to fixing it right now if I'm going to have to just change it back to the next game. So, Daniel, though, I was going to say, off to a 2-goal start. No, not quite able to make that one through. Really close out of him, but instead Forky's going to go the other way with the ceiling shot. Actually, the ceiling reset. Fakes out the ceiling reset, though, and goes low. That's another thing to mention with Forky. I think I said this in the last series before. Like I said, the last series got corrupted. If you guys would like to go watch that on my Twitch, the audio is still fine. Unfortunately, it's the video that looks like absolute poop. But this should come out a little bit cleaner. I believe this is 1080p, so this should work fine. But regardless, yeah, Daniel and Forky have very different styles on offense. Obviously, Daniel is a very mechanical player, but he doesn't really like to show that off on every single attack that he makes. He's a very heads-up player. He's a very physical player. I think he's really good at keeping himself close and putting a lot of physical pressure on his opponents. Obviously, Forky trying to be the one for physicality there, going for a bumper or demo. But regardless, he's a very good player. He's got great mechanics. Forky, though, has great mechanics as well, but loves to show off with them a little bit. You'll see Forky take some more unethical goals or more original goals. Unoriginal is not the right word there. But Forky does that a lot, and I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing. I think he's a quick enough player that he can sometimes get away with those. Obviously, this game, really quick. Both players just kind of chasing each other around the field now. It's a very different vibe from what we got the first game, where it was very methodical and both players just kind of squaring each other up for each attack. Instead, this one is bouncing all over the pitch, and both players trying to set something up. I think this will be it out of Forky. Dishes this one down, but no, Daniel's there. But that's what I mean. Like, you see how Forky is whipping around the field. The first time he gets a shot, it's a weird angle, but he's still able to nail that one on. I mean, that's the Forky special right there, is basically being able to get these super weird angles, these super tough shots that a lot of other players would not be able to get because he's so mechanically gifted and such a interesting shot taker. That's the best way to put it. Daniel not able to get the bump there. I think Forky bumped Daniel into the ball. It might be a little too late. Is Daniel still trying to set up a shot? No, instead not. Forky's going to finally open up his scoreline in this game after a miss from Daniel and a counterattack to go the other way. So this game already looking a whole lot different than the first game. A lot higher paced. Or a lot faster paced, I should say. And we're about halfway through the game with a 1-1 scoreline. So this is a very different game from what we saw the first game, which was high-flying action, a 10-8 finale, and pretty much taking up the entire time. So you see Forky showing off those mechanics on the wall there. Only has 5 boosts, but still able to take off a good shot. Picks up a couple small pads, and I think he's, no, not coming back for it. He's just going to pop this one high. Knows the boost in the corner isn't there for Daniel, so he's got to be careful. Oh, but there's the boost indeed. Forky pops off. So now we get to see what it looks like when both players are at a decent amount of boost and can really set up an attack how they need. Forky going to play a little bit more hesitant. This is not something I'm used to seeing out of Forky. I think I'll say this, I'll probably say this throughout the series. Forky is definitely an aggressive player. I would definitely put him more as an offense-based player than a defense-based player. And that's something that really comes into effect later on in this series, and I would say just later on for Forky's play. Oh, almost a ridiculous flip reset. The scoop from that was great, but unfortunately it's going the other way. But that's what I mean when I say Forky takes some weird goals. Like, that scoop, the mechanics you need for that, and the idea to go for that immediately rather than popping it into the right side, going for just a traditional dribble. No, it's the quick reset. That's the Forky stuff. That's the overly mechanical stuff that a lot of other players cannot pull off. So it makes sense for him to try. Forky with a pre-jump there, though. I don't know if I advised the pre-jump there. He's wasted a lot of boost now, and Daniel's got plenty of time to set up a shot here. That was not the setup Daniel was looking for, but he's going to be able to pick up this boost in the corner and go back at it again. Forky really low here, finally going to be able to pick up the boost. Now we see him go to the sky. Like I said, Forky special. Go high, see what you can do. But again, leaves himself open for the counterattack. This time he's a bit quicker to the ball. And down 2-1 here, he really cannot afford to go down another goal here, especially in a series that's been so tight. 1 minute left, Daniel flying in out of nowhere. But like I feel like I said this a couple of times in this video, and I really do continue to say it. I'd love to see Forky go back in contention for the top 1v1 players on North America. Like I said, he had been somewhat up there when he was playing against Lethamir and First Killer and Mile, and I think it was back then, I want to say Taroko was in the mix for 1v1s in the original Salt Mine, but Salt Mine 2, an unimpressive showing out of him. He was not able to make it out of qualifiers, and he really didn't show much up in qualifiers. I think finishing between 5th and 6th every time. But that's why I want to see Forky in competitive play. Those sort of air dribbles, those sort of plays are just so pretty to see. And I really do think if he just completely makes all of those, we'll call it picture perfect, just sort of make sure that those shots become more exact, that his positioning becomes more advantageous to himself in the long run, I do think that he's going to have a good shot at becoming one of the premier 1v1 players in North America. Unfortunately, he's playing up against one of the premier 1v1 players in North America and one who's been here for a minute. Daniel, obviously, like I said, a ranked grinder who's been around for a second, and really his due diligence is here. He's done a lot of work, put in a lot of work into 1v1s here, and it's really showing this season as he's gotten himself up to the top 10 of 1v1 players. He's become a very well-known name within Rocket League, and now he's taken 2 games in a row against Forky, so impressive stuff to him. Forky not able to slot in the last goal, and that's all she wrote for this one. So again, this is something This is something I sort of mentioned going into this one, is sort of that this is going to be treated like a best-of-5 series. So if the next game Daniel is able to win this one, we're just going to take away that scoreboard in the top left, and we're just going to keep watching them as if, it's just a normal replay. But so far, Daniel really showing himself why he's one of the best 1v1 players in North America and why he's someone to be feared. I'm hoping we see Daniel at least pop up in the next Salt Mine, or I think Gold Mine is the next thing coming up. Johnny and Gold Rush are doing a combo sort of thing where they're going to be doing, I believe it's 1v1s again, but it's going to be sponsored by Gold Rush. So we're going to see how that one goes, but you saw how that one went. Daniel obviously holding his ground again for the second game in a row. So now as we get into this third game, we're going to see if maybe there's a little bit of a switch up from Forky, and if he can try and play a different style of game. But I will say, this is technically the second batch of replays. So I said that this was a more or less quote-unquote best-of-5. These take place over 2 separate days. The original one takes place on October 8th, where they go back-to-back at 5:05 and then 5:20, and that's when the two of them go. And then the next day, it's a best-of-3 series between the two of them. Daniel and Forky ran into each other at 2 a.m., 3 times in a row, more or less. I think there might have been a break between the 4th and the 5th one, but that could also just be they didn't queue against anybody or just had some time to play 2s or something. But obviously, the next 3 go at 2 a.m., 2:10, and then 2:50. So the next 3 are a little bit more incongruence, but they're also in the early a.m., so this could play a factor here in the rest of this series. I don't necessarily know if it will or will not, but we'll find out. So switching back over to these two guys. Also putting up, I believe it's the second mark. Yeah, Daniel's now got 2. And we're ready to go into this third game. They're back to the original colors that they were in the first game, so it's going to be a little bit less confusing for y'all, thankfully. Daniel off to a start. This is something I mentioned in the last video we watched as we, almost have a shot off from Daniel, but a lot of 1v1 play likes to start off aggressive. It very much seems this could be a North American thing because I feel like I may not see this as much in Europe, and I've watched a decent amount of European 1v1s, but early goals are a huge thing in North America. Daniel coming out with one here within the first 20 seconds, but both players like to play extremely aggressive to start off with. Someone gets a goal, and then from there on out, they sort of adjust with the series. They play more defensively if they're down in the series. They play more aggressively if they're not. Or they play more aggressively if they're down in the series, excuse me. They play more defensively if they're not. If they're in the lead here, they usually can play a little bit more reserved. So it seems like Daniel's in a much more comfortable position when he's in his reserved mode. And as it goes right now, he's got all the reason. Forky somehow gets the flip reset off of that one, but really, if he had just popped that one in, I think Daniel was too far extended. Daniel with a little bit of an oversight, and this is sort of what I mean when I say that Daniel, I think, needs to work on his Rocket League IQ. I think that he's a very skilled player. I think his mechanics are fantastic, and I think he's got great speed to back up those mechanics. Speaking of which, able to dribble that quickly enough that he recovers on the ground. But I think that his positioning can still be worked on a little bit. Daniel, I think, got his name, if I'm not mistaken, in 2s and 3s, so this is more, not unfamiliar territory, but this definitely isn't as comfortable a territory as if he were in other ranked modes. But still, I do think that he's got a good IQ for 1s, but still needs to improve upon it a little bit. Forky, that's a little bit more of an IQ for 1s. I think this is something he's been in a little bit longer, and his positioning's pretty solid. The biggest thing for Forky, I would say, if he's going to really try to continue himself up at the top level of 1v1, is he's got to start working on his defense. Defense is really solid, but I think that it does have some glaring weaknesses that are going to be the biggest issues for Forky as he continues to play against top-level competition and as competition gets better. JohnnyBoi talks about this constantly. I think it's a great statement. Oh, real quick, we're just going to appreciate the bump dribble that came out of Daniel. A great fake off the initial air dribble and a great bump afterwards to secure himself a 3-1 lead. But as I was saying, JohnnyBoi talks about this constantly. There really is not a, we haven't gotten close to the skill ceiling for Rocket League yet. Rocket League, especially in 1v1s, in my opinion, is so, wow, Forky almost scores on himself, but is able to turn that around into a, I guess a save, really, is the best way to put it. Not really a counterattack. I was going to say counterattack, but instead it's a counterattack out of Daniel that's going to really score here. But regardless, the skill ceiling in Rocket League has not been hit yet. We've got a couple of, I would say, I don't know if it's years, I don't know if it's a decade plus, because games like CS really I don't even think have hit their skill ceiling yet they're in their second iteration now after going through Source and now into CSGO. But it really depends. We'll see how long it takes for Rocket League to hit its skill ceiling, but as it stands right now, we're definitely not there. There's tons of room for people to grow, and there's tons of new stuff and mechanics and things that we can't even imagine right now that will pop up in the next coming years. Great shot out of Daniel off the wall. Good power and placement. But like I said, I mean, Daniel really could be one of those players to really push the ceiling. He's a young player. He's a very mechanically gifted player. He's a very solid player all around. If he continues to push his mechanics, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing some new techniques specifically based on stuff that he's either invented or started using. But like I said, his IQ for where to play, it's a little bit different right there. Rather than going for the ball, I think if he had bumped Forky off, he would have had a very clear path at trying to continue possession there. But instead, he just tries to go for the ball and the bump at the same time. It's a bit of a weird play, similarly to the one we just saw. Daniel not quite calculating the fake kickoff, or Forky read it and just banged it on target too quickly. And Daniel, again, back to the fake kickoffs again, though. Forky seems like he's pretty comfortable in this position, but might have overextended his hand just a tad bit. Daniel's got to rip off a shot here, and that he will. 6-3 now. 2:10 left. But both of these players are extremely solid. I say I sing the praises of Daniel in the next coming years, not to say that I think Forky is going to become a bad player in the next coming years, but more that Daniel is a young player. We really don't know what to expect out of him. Forky's been around for a minute. He's been a player that we know can consistently play well, and we know has the potential to play even better than what he's at now. Speaking of which, who else to hit an angle like that except for Forky? Pops it above Daniel's head, realizes he's a bit out of position there. Great stuff out of Forky so far. But really, going into the next couple years, or even going into the next salt mine, obviously we've gone through 2 of them. I'd love to see a third one. I think everybody in the Rocket League community would love to see a third one. Fake low out of Forky, not going to work here. But going into the next one, I really want to see some new North American talent. JohnnyBoi, oh, what a dribble. Holy bounce from Daniel. He's going to take this one slowly just to rub some salt in the wound, 7-4. But JohnnyBoi's talked about this a lot. The North American talent right now is not as exciting to watch, or at least in his opinion, and I get this opinion. I don't agree with it, but I get it, because of the fact that it's so one-sided. First Killer is unanimously the best ones player in North America. If you think otherwise at the moment, you're going to need to use some sort of mind-boggling evidence to at least convince me. No way, Forky got that off the ceiling. Are you kidding me? Oh, I forgot about that play. The recovery off the wall to the ceiling to the shot. Great stuff out of Forky. Again, that's the mechanics we're known to see from Forky. The not-so-normal goals are going to be huge for him. And he misses an open net! Oh, I did not remember that part. That's just about as shocking as the first time. Oh, no, he had this game in the bag. 7-6. He could have brought himself within 1, but regardless of that, I guess going back to what I was saying, yeah, seeing either of these players be able to take down First Killer would be so exciting, because he has just been such a dominant force in North American 1v1s. He's, I believe, lost a couple of times to international players, but he has not been able to lose, at least in recent memory, to anyone in North America. I think that, in my opinion, if a couple of the pros that have been playing ones come out of retirement and go back into playing ones rather than focusing on threes, they could probably do it. I think more specifically, Lethamyr is one of the most underrated 1v1 players in North America. I think he just doesn't like the grind of trying to stay at a pro level as much, which totally reasonable. But if Lethamyr were to get back into North American 1v1s, I do think he would be a force to be reckoned with, even for First Killer. But we've got two forces of nature right now who are both technically higher on the leaderboard than First Killer. So if Forky and Daniel can continue to grind out this season, I think they'll get a lot of good ones experience. And that's all the experience for this game, though. 7-5, this one goes. 7 seconds left, and we're going to see the forfeit out of Forky for the third game in a row now. So obviously, Forky comes away with the loss here in this series. Daniel takes 3 in a row on 2 separate days in order to keep himself in this series, which not terrible. It is what it is. Daniel, like I said, is a very, very, very good player. He's been on the top of the Ranked 1 stuff since the season started. He's been a ranked grinder for a very, very long time. And if you guys don't know what a ranked grinder is, it's basically someone who literally will spend hours on hours a day just grinding through ranked games and just continually upping their elo. And Daniel is one of the best at it. He's for a while now been really good at getting his name up there, and that's kind of how he's gotten a lot of this recognized. Is it reckonability? I don't know. Recognition? I don't know. Whatever the word is, I apologize for my improper English, but whatever it is, he's getting a lot of recognition. That's the word I'm looking for. Recognition for being at the top of the leaderboard constantly. So that's really how a lot of pros have gotten to know his name, and this is why everyone is talking about, well, this is going to be Daniel for the next couple years. He will be someone who undoubtedly is going to be in RLCS. He's someone who is undoubtedly going to be a big name in Rocket League, so keep your eyes peeled, continue watching that guy. He's going to be someone big, and I'm excited to see his future. But before I sing his praises any further, let's get on in to this fourth game. So real quick, what we're going to do is, because of the fact that Daniel and Forky have obviously already finished this series, we're going to, real quick, if I can, let's make sure, yeah, that hides all of my folders. Let's hide the info, and there we go. So now that's out of the screen. I apologize if you were not a fan of it initially, but it's an easy way to keep track of score for me, and it's an easy way to keep track of score for people just tuning into the video randomly, or who have me muted and don't know what the series score is. Again, I've said this before when casting for a couple leagues, but I really am not offended if you guys mute my commentary. I totally get it. Ooh, as Daniel starts this one off with a bang. Great air dribble out of him. But yeah, I get it if people mute commentators and casters. I've never been once offended by it. Some people just want to watch the Rocket League game. They don't need any sound. They don't need to hear anything. They'd rather just, watch the players play. And I get it. That's totally reasonable. I'm not offended by that at all. I totally get it. So the reason I really put up series score and stuff like that is specifically for the people who are, just watching to watch. They're not listening to me mention what the series score is. But at this point, series score doesn't matter. Daniel's already won 3 in a row. Forky at this point just trying to get a game on Daniel, and that's a nice start for him. Good flick around Daniel. He's going to bring this back within 1. But notice how we're within the first minute, and still 1-1. Forky are going down in the series immediately. Daniel scored very quickly in this game as well. So I mentioned it already. I'm going to continue to mention it. Rocket League in North America in the 1v1 scene right now really does seem very explosive to start off with. And it does seem to continue following that trend. I wouldn't say that as the series goes on, the explosiveness becomes less and less. Obviously, Daniel somehow popping off a shot from midfields really goes to show you that. As this one bounces off the wall, this should be, ooh, not another goal. That's going to be very heads-up play out of Forky. See, that's the sort of stuff I'd like to start seeing out of Daniel more, is Daniel kind of just waits there lackadaisically. I think part of it might be that it's 2 a.m., so these two players might be a little bit more fatigued, both mentally and physically, in comparison to their games previous to this, but regardless, that's still something that I'd like to see more of Daniel, is that heads-up physical play, where he's really taking his opponents out of the game in a 1v1, making sure to take them out of a game in 1v1, and rather than focusing on, trying to get the best hit on the ball, he focuses on getting himself in the best position to set up a long-term goal. Because part of Daniel's play is very, very quick pace, and I think part of that makes it so that he's short-sighted. Speaking of short-sighted, Forky missing this one entirely. I don't think his vision was correctly on the ball there, giving the 3-1 lead to Daniel. But regardless of that, yeah, I think that this is definitely not a bad play out of Daniel whatsoever, but you see how the bump there from Forky just completely opens up a goal for himself. He's got a wide open net to shoot upon, and that's sort of the difference, is that Forky has been playing in 1v1s and been a high-level 1v1 player since early 2009, or late 2019, I should say, maybe even earlier in 2019, but obviously 2019, the late 2019 is when the Salt Mine Cup came out, or the original Salt Mine, and that was something that really a lot of people started to take notice of how big of a threat Forky was in American 1v1s. Speaking of threat in 1v1s, taking that boost out of the corner and giving himself plenty of time and space. Good play out of Forky here to tie it up. But regardless, yeah, that's sort of what I mean when I say that there really is an opportunity here for Daniel to sort of become one of the best 1v1 players in North America and really topple a lot of the previous competition. Forky has been a name in 1v1s. He is not a player to take lightly, obviously setting up a ridiculously untraditional shot here, which, oh, he's going to get in. Or that's just, oh my word, the read off the dunk there is just oh so nice. But Daniel, really, if he can play against competition like this, I do think that he has a chance to upset the big names. I think he's got a chance to take wins off of people like Kronovi, Justin, let's see, I'm trying to think of other 1v1 players that I'd like to see go back into the scene. Obviously, First Killer, like I mentioned, if he gets big enough. Lethemir would be a huge one if Leth comes back out of retirement to start playing ones again. I think Magic Bear is a huge guy that people need to be focused on. Lion Blaze, that's another one. Mile is another one, but it would be really interesting to see where Daniel ends up in the conversation of North American 1v1s, because he's so young, he's got so much room for improvement despite being such a good player already. So if you guys would like to see more of Daniel, though, I will link his Twitch down below. I'm going to link Forky's Twitch as well, obviously, but I don't think Forky it necessarily needs the views as much as Daniel. Not to say that I think that he doesn't deserve them. I think Forky's a great streamer. I think his, more specifically, if you guys haven't seen what he did for Twitch Rivals, please go check that out. Man dressed up in a suit and a very weird wig and basically just had a comms battle versus Sizz and Rizzo the entire time, where they just screamed using the in-game mics over and over again, and it was one of the funniest things I've seen in a minute. But that aside, Forky, a great streamer, same to Daniel, but it'd be interesting to see if Daniel, as he grows in the next coming years and as he becomes a more and more well-established name, who he starts taking down. So we'll have to see. Time will only tell. However, in this game, he's back to his usual routine. Daniel, we've already seen him have come from behind victories here, and almost gets another long shot out of him. But that's sort of what this is sort of what we've come to expect out of Daniel. That's not what I've come to expect out of Daniel. A weird miss there as he gets towards his own goal. Thankfully, he's able to recover. But again, you see, Daniel's a good, he's a good offensive player in consideration to the fact that he's willing to take a shot from pretty much anywhere on field. It very much feels like Khaled in that degree. I wouldn't say that he's necessarily the same as Khaled, but he's a really good player in being able to take a lethal shot from pretty much anywhere on the field. Forky is great at doing the similar thing, but I don't think he really goes for those long shots as often. He's much more traditionally been a player that has a little bit of flash to his shots, as I've mentioned a couple of times in the series. But see, this is what I mean when I mention the Khaled specials. That's something that you don't see a lot in North American 1v1s, the dribble plays, and it's something I'd love to see more of. The rip from that shot was just ridiculous from Daniel, and that's something you absolutely see in European 1v1s and Middle Eastern 1v1s. This one popped on in. Forky, challenges low, is able to come away with the ball. 8-6 now here with a minute left. But I'd love to see dribbling come into play in North America a little bit more. I mentioned this also in the last time I casted these two guys and the file got corrupted. I think I had a whole spiel about this as well, but North American 1v1s really don't focus on dribbling as much as Europeans do, because I think part of it is they'd rather go to the ceiling, they'd rather go to an air dribble, they'd rather try to go for a bump, something similarly. But European 1v1, these players are deadly on the floor. Their flicks are solid, just like Daniel's flick there. Their attacks are extremely solid. No matter how they're dribbling, the bounce dribbles are extremely lethal at any moment. And I think that's a huge difference between the two regions right now, is that North America is a little bit more focused on playing very mechanically and going to the air and trying to sort of surprise their opponent with the shot that's being taken and just force them into an awkward position off the save. Meanwhile, European 1v1s and a lot of what we've seen out there have been a lot of dribble plays that have focused on just taking a shot that's a ripper over and over and over again and then boost starving their opponents. And I think that that's actually a pretty good strategy. I think both of them are viable, but for right now, we don't see nearly enough of strategy 2 in North American 1v1s. I think we've seen a couple of players who can do it well, but for the most part, we don't see it nearly as much as we do see it in Europe. So as it stands right now, I'd love to see some more of that, but right now, I'm happy to see I'm happy to see Daniel and Forky duke it out for a 4th time now, but Daniel again coming away with the win. For the 4th time in a row now here, Daniel has continued to impress everyone around myself and the rest of the Rocket League community, taking 4 in a row against the well-established Forky. So we'll get into the 5th game here. Got 1 left to go, but obviously the series score as it is right now, it's 4-0 for Daniel. So he's been a great player. I really cannot sing his praises enough today. If you guys are interested in watching more of his stuff, please go check out go check out the link in the description. Please go show him some love. And I'm gonna try to keep this last one short. I really don't have a lot more to add here in the in-between. So without further ado, into the final game of the series we go. Forky versus Daniel. We got one last showing between the two of them. And I think they're flipped around again. So again, Daniel is in orange, Forky's in blue this time. I apologize. But that's the type of shots we've come to know and love from Forky. Immediately going off with, I believe it was either Tornado or Breezy. Didn't really watch it closely enough to know. But regardless, that's the shots I love to see out of Forky. The flick afterwards, great too. Just when I'm talking about we need more dribbles, Forky showing why the dribble's so effective. Also, I don't know about y'all watching this one. You can let me know in the comments if I'm completely wrong on this one, which I would expect. I hate this stadium. I am not a fan of Wasteland. I've never been a fan of Wasteland. I know a lot of people do, but I just do not like this stadium. I think the floor textures are distracting. I think if you have weather effects on, which many of the younger players that don't know to turn them off do, it's an extremely distracting field that doesn't allow you to know how to play correctly. It, like, throws you off super aggressively. Woo! Forky going with a reverse dribble. Oh, my word. Okay, so Forky might have heard, I don't know if he heard my comments from the last game or something, or if someone else told him this, but he apparently understood. Yeah, dribbles might be a bit effective here. He's got a good start already, off to a 1-0 lead with a minute in, but regardless, yeah, I think that this stadium, not my favorite. Not my favorite whatsoever, but, you know, to each their own. I also like the rival stadium and think that should be put back into normal rotation, and I know a lot of people hate that stadium, so, you know, each their own, but we got a game on our hand regardless of the stadium, 2-0 right now. This is the biggest lead. Oh, that's the biggest lead Forky's had all game, or all series, I should say. 3-0 now, 3:47 left, and Daniel, we've seen him fight back from comebacks before, so this is not unfamiliar territory to him. But the question really is now is whether or not he's going to be able to do it with 4 minutes on the clock. Forky back to launching one high. I think this was meant to be set up as a double tap, but off the bar it goes. I think a shot there might have been a little bit more effective if you rip one at net and then immediately go for boost steal. Pretty much what, I guess the reverse of what he did there. He forced Daniel to go into the boost in the corner, but still had possession, so with the 20 boost he had left over, able to rip out a shot and increase his lead to 4-0 now. So this is by far the biggest comeback we're going to need to see out of Daniel if he's going to pull this one off. And so far, it's really not looking like it. Forky dominating both in aerial and on the ground right now. Oh, maybe not there, though. That was not the touch Forky was looking for in any way, shape, or form off the wall. And 4-1 it becomes. That 4-goal lead brought down to 3, and now Daniel's got a bit of a shot. So now Forky going to try and just play this back into his own corner. Play slowly. I don't know who really benefits more from the slow or fast play. We saw this in, I believe it was game 2. The first half of the game was extremely fast. Both players just kind of whipping it around the field over and over again. Ooh, great ceiling shot from, or I guess that's off the wall really from Daniel, but regardless, I think that this fast-paced play or the slow-paced play doesn't really necessarily favor either one of these guys. I think that Daniel might be a little bit more comfortable playing at a fast pace. I think I said that right, because of the fact that Forky likes to set up these dribble plays a little bit more than him and likes to set up the more intricate plays. But really, Daniel still unfazed by the slow play, challenges at the right time, and brings his lead, or brings his deficit, I guess, down to 1. Forky's lead now brought down to 1. So, Forky, you got to get nervous if you're in his position here. And at least I would hope not, but you really should. Daniel going for another, what I would say is unethical play there. He's going to walk away with the win. I guess maybe he saw the overextension from Forky in a way that I didn't, but I would have probably gone for a bump play there, bumped him completely out of the way, and then retried that all over again. But regardless of that, that's still an impressive play to Daniel. I can't believe he was able to get the save and turn that into a transition, and now he's actually brought this game to a lead. 5 uncontested goals in a row now for Daniel. Forky, you got to imagine, he's sitting there. It's 3 a.m. on a, I believe this was Thursday, I want to say. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, whatever day the 9th was, but 3 a.m. on a midweek game. He's probably a little bit tilted and a little bit like, man, if I had just gone to bed. Although, if he had gone to bed, we wouldn't see shots like that. Another reverse flick out of Forky, and it's a banger of one at that. So 5-5 we become. Forky finally getting a goal on the board after 5 uncontested goals in a row from Daniel. So at least pulling away a little bit of the momentum that Daniel had. And Daniel goes for another bump. I will say, Forky's defense, despite the fact that I have had some criticism for it, and I think that it does need to improve in a couple of different places, his defense on air dribble bumps is something I have not seen from a lot of other players. He is willing to get not only around these air dribble bumps and prevent them, but he's really getting in the way physically. A lot of other players won't even take the bump because they're worried they're going to get bumped so far off a ball that they're not going to be able to recover. But Forky gets in the mix of it, and not only does he get in the mix of it, for the most part, it ends up well for him against air dribble bumps. We saw the single one that I believe started off either this series or the series previous to it, but regardless, he has done a good job of staying ahead of the curve. Speaking of staying ahead of the curve, this one almost dropping in. We're back to the fast-paced whip around the stadium play. Oh, but it's going to break down after the bump. Daniel, almost gets reverse bumped. He's able to barely sustain it. But now Forky switching it up on Daniel after being bumped a couple of times. I think he might be sick of it. Brings himself to a 1-goal lead with a minute left here now, and he's got to try and hold on to this one. Takes his time to set up the shot. Yeah, I was wondering about that one. Maybe just low on boost, or at least I would imagine off kickoff he was. Because unfortunately, Daniel really did not necessarily have the save there if he was able to rip that one off quickly, but timed that one out well. Daniel going to have the boost to save this one for sure. And now it kind of comes down to a game of time. Forky's got the 1-goal lead. Daniel needs to score. If Forky plays this correctly, I was going to say he doesn't overplay his hand and just tries to waste time here. That's not what's happening thus far, though. He is very aggressive here, and I'm worried this is not going to pan out for him. What in the world was that dribble? Never mind. I will eat my words. That dribble somehow worked out. Super glitchy on my screen, but probably fluid as all heck for Daniel. 6-6 it becomes with 30 seconds left here now, and this is the nightmare for Forky. Daniel has made many a comebacks here in this best of 5, or in this 5-game series, and the physicality going to have to come out of Forky in order to secure this one. As he gets ready on the wall. This might be the last shot of the game here if Forky does this correctly. I don't think he did it correctly, though. Daniel, gets tripped up on the floor, though, and that's going to be that. Forky walks this one in, 7-6, 12 seconds left. Unfortunate for Daniel, that trip up on the floor. I mentioned how Daniel needs to play more physical. Forky making up for him, playing as physical as possible to make up for the lack of physicality out of Daniel here. With 5 seconds left in an open net, Daniel really just doesn't have the time, unless Forky challenges early for some reason. To overtime we go. The dribble from Daniel really shouldn't have happened there. Forky, for some reason, wanted to challenge early. I mentioned that Forky's defense needs to be improved upon. I think that's a place it could be improved upon. You've only got a couple of seconds left there. Why not let your opponent rip a shot at you and just make sure it hits the ground? Otherwise, you're leaving them completely open to try and reverse on you and potentially get the win. Speaking of which, no, not going to happen here. Forky needs a good pinch here. Not going to get it. He needs to be quick on this. You see the hesitation, just a slight hesitation in the corner there. I'd probably put that just to fatigue and to the time of night. But unfortunately, that one little bit of hesitation is going to take away what was probably the best opportunity all game for Forky. And now Forky's realizing he's low on boost in comparison to his opponent. He's got to get this away. That he will. Back and forth we go. We're back to a very quick pace play, except for the weird reset out of Forky. And now he's panicking, and I think he knows that. Trying to get around this ball, pops it out to the side. Daniel's got a shot towards the center, though, and if Forky doesn't save it, that he will. This one been very back and forth here in this overtime. After mentioning how much I think that that Forky needed to work on his defense, he has proven to be a bit of a rock here. Oh! Caster Curse, though, coming out at the wrong moment. A minute into this overtime, and Forky just slips up a tad bit, a little too long in the corner there, not in position to save the goal. And we'll watch back at this, because I really do think that this was just Forky overextended in the corner here. So we'll look over to Forky. What does he do here? Yeah, he goes for the boost, turns a little bit too aggressively towards Daniel, and rather than getting ready for the shot there, he just gets scored upon because he thinks he could maybe challenge early. So if you guys aren't seeing this, right? All right, so hold up. I'll show you exactly where I'm talking about. So right there, you see that little bit of turn he does to go towards Daniel? That little bit of turn leaves Daniel enough time that he can set up this shot, and he takes a bounce dribble then rather than trying to play this one slow because he knows Forky is just a bit too delayed to go to the center and can pop it around him. Really good heads-up play at a Daniel, and that's going to be how this series ends up. So thank you guys for coming through. Again, if you are looking on my channel going, what the heck, why is this not the same VOD as on Twitch? It's because that VOD is disgusting. The frame rate is awful. The picture quality is awful, so I'm hoping this is a little bit cleaner. Thank you guys for coming through here. If you're new to the channel, please click subscribe. I'm going to be doing some more of these. Big shout out to Forky and to Daniel for obviously, I believe it's Daniel who uploaded this cast, so shout out to him for uploading the replay. Shout out to Forky for playing in these because I'm gonna link both of them down below. And also shout out JohnnyBoi. If it weren't for his recommendation of doing this sort of stuff, he didn't necessarily directly recommend it to me, but he's been doing this on YouTube, and I think there's a lot of players in North America who need some spotlight. And really, I just think there's a ton of replays that could be casted that the public would love to see that aren't out there yet. So shout out to JohnnyBoi for this as well. But that's going to be the end of this one. Thank you guys, and keep on the lookout. Like I said, apparently Jack versus TRK, that'll probably be up maybe the same day. So go check the channel and find out. Peace out, guys.